Root's voice crackled in the dwarf's ears. Get a move on, Mulch Diggums, before that mudman gets up and rearranges your innards. He took out an entire retrieval team, you know. Mulch swallowed, his bravado suddenly deserting him. An entire retrieval team. Maybe I should get back underground, for the good of the mission. Skipping hurriedly around the groaning bodyguard, Mulch took the steps 2 at a time. No point in worrying about creaking stairs when you've just sent the intestinal equivalent of Hurricane Hal scurrying around the corridors. He had almost reached the cellar door when a figure shimmered into focus before him. Mulch recognised it as his arresting officer from the Renaissance Master's smuggling case. Captain Short? Mulch, I wasn't expecting to see you. The dwarf shrugged. Well, Julius had a dirty job. Someone had to do it. I get it, said Holly, nodding. You've already lost your magic. Smart. What did you find out? Mulch showed Holly his find. This was in his safe. A copy of the book? Gasped Holly. No wonder we're in this fix. We were playing into his hands all along. Mulch opened the cellar door. Shall we? I can't. I'm under eyeball orders not to leave the house. You magical types and your rituals. You have no idea how liberating it is to be rid of all that mumbo-jumbo. A series of sharp noises drifted down from the upper landing. It sounded like a troll thrashing around in a crystal emporium. We can debate ethics at a later date. Right now, I suggest we make ourselves scarce. Mulch nodded. Agreed. This guy took out an entire retrieval squad, apparently. Holly paused, half-shielded. An entire squad? Fully equipped. I wonder... She continued her fade-out, and the last thing to go was her widening grin. Mulch was tempted to hang around. There wasn't many things more fun to watch than a heavily armed recon officer going to town on a bunch of unsuspecting humans. By the time Captain Short got through with this foul character, he'd be begging her to get out of his manor. The foul character in question was watching it all from the surveillance room. There was no denying it. Things were not good. Not good at all. But certainly not irredeemable. There was still hope. Artemis catalogued the events of the last few minutes. The manor's security had been compromised. The safe room was in a shambles, blown apart by some sort of fairy flatulence. Butler lay unconscious, possibly paralysed by the same gaseous anomaly. His hostage was loose in the house, her fairy powers restored to her. There was an unsightly creature in leather chaps, burrowing holes beneath the foundations with no apparent regard for the fairy commandments, and the people had retrieved a copy of the book. One of several copies, as it happened, including one on disc in a Swiss vault. Yeah, I was just thinking that. He's not just got one copy. Artemis's finger combed an errant strand of dark hair. He would have to dig very deep to uncover the good in this particular scenario. He took several deep breaths, finding his chi as Butler had taught him. After several moments' contemplation, he realised that these factors meant little to the overall strategies of both sides. Captain Short was still trapped in the manor, and the time stoppage period was running out. Soon the LEP would have no option but to launch their biobomb, and that was when Artemis Fowl would unveil his coup de grace. Of course, the whole thing depended on Commander Root. If Root was as intellectually challenged as he looked, it was quite possible the entire scheme would collapse around his ears. Artemis hoped fervently that someone on the fairy team had the wit to spot the blunder he'd made during the negotiation session. Mulch unbuttoned his bum flap. Time to suck some dirt, as they said down the mines. The trouble with dwarf tunnels was that they were self-sealing, so that if you had to go back the same way that you came, there was a whole new burrow to be excavated. Some dwarfs retraced their steps exactly chewing through the less compact and pre-digested dirt. Mulch preferred to dig a fresh tunnel. For some reason, eating the same dirt twice didn't appeal to him. Unhinging his jaw, the dwarf pointed himself torpedo-like through the hole in the floorboards. His heart calmed immediately as the scent of minerals filled his nostrils. Safe. He was safe. Nothing could catch a dwarf underground, not even a scalian rockworm. That was, of course, if he managed to get underground. 10 very powerful fingers gripped Mulch by the ankles. This just wasn't the dwarf's day. First Wartface, now this homicidal human. Some people never learn, usually mud people. "Egg go," he mumbled, unhinged jaw flapping uselessly. "Not a chance," came the reply. "The only way you're leaving this house is in a body bag." Mulch could feel himself being dragged backwards. This human was strong. There weren't many creatures that could dislodge a dwarf with a grip on something. He scrabbled in the dirt, cramming handfuls of wine-impregnated clay into his cavernous mouth. There was only one chance. "Come on, you little goblin, out of there." Goblin? Mulch would have been indignant had he not been busy chewing clay to eject at his enemy. The human stopped talking. Possibly he had noticed the bum flap, and probably the bum. No doubt what had happened in the safe room was coming back to him. Oh. What would have followed the "oh" is anyone's guess, but I'd be willing to bet that it wouldn't have been "dearie me." As it happened, Butler never had time to finish his expletive because he wisely chose that moment to relinquish his grip, to let go. A wise choice indeed, because it coincided with the instant Mulch decided to launch his earthen offensive. A lump of compacted clay sped like a cannonball directly at the spot where Butler's head had been barely a second previously. Had it still occupied that space, the impact would have separated it from Butler's shoulders. An ignoble end for a bodyguard of his caliber. As it was, the soggy missile barely grazed his ear. Nevertheless, the force was sufficient to spin Butler like an ice skater, landing him on his rump for the second time in as many minutes. By the time his vision had settled, the dwarf had disappeared into a maelstrom of churning muck. Butler decided not to attempt pursuit. Dying below ground was not very high on his things-to-do list. But there will be another day, fairy, he thought grimly. And there was to be. But that's another story. I shall stop there. Okay, so Holly is still in Artemis's manor, in his house, and she can't leave because the rule says, if you're told to stay, then you have to stay. All right. See you tomorrow. Bye.